This is Zero Studios, and I've planned something special for today. So, I have been talking about these so-called spells, but I never told you what they really are. Now, that's what we are gonna change today, so let's get started. When I was making abilities before, I used the name of the ability item to distinguish it from normal items. Basically, when the player clicked, the code checked if the player's held item is named something specific, like with Rear Shield. If it is, the code can do something. I have three main problems with this method. First, I couldn't change the name of the item, because then the ability wouldn't work. Second, if I wanted to make the same style of description for each custom item, I needed to set it manually, and that takes a lot of time. Finally, I wanted to contain the stats of an item, for example its damage. This is not good because if I want to change them later, they won't change visually in the description. Hopefully my new ability system solves all of these problems. To solve these, let's start with the easiest one: how to not use the item's name as an identifier. I discovered that in Minecraft there is a system that allows you to add custom information to the item that isn't visible by players. Now, when the player clicks, the code just checks if the item has that custom information, and if it does, it can use the ability. See? This was easy. Now what about the other two issues? They were a lot harder, but ultimately I could get them to work. I solved this by making a file that is easy to edit, and it stores information about the abilities. It stores their description, their stats, their name, and a lot more useful stuff. Now, when someone joins, a code will search their inventory for custom items. If the informations in the description and in the file I created match, nothing happens. But if they don't, for example, if I have changed the cooldown of an item, the code will change the description of the item to match what's in the file. So now, if I want to change something, I just need to change a line in that file, and the players will automatically have that changed. This is great, but these are not spells, not yet. I still have a problem with it. They take up a lot of space in your hotbar. Therefore, it is really hard to make combos. Then I had an idea. What if I could just press Shift plus right click anytime to execute a chosen ability? It doesn't even need to be in your hotbar. So, with this in mind, I started working. I plan to make 10 spells equipable. 5 for Shift plus right click and 5 for Shift plus left. When you have more than 2 spells equipped, you can change what spells are selected with Shift plus F. For example, if you have 3 spells, 1 for left click and 2 for right, you can press Shift plus left or Shift plus right click to use the first 2 spells. Or you can press Shift plus F, then Shift plus right click to use the third one. And in case these hotkeys would be annoying, I made it so when you press Shift plus Q, you will be able to turn them off. From now, if I say spell, you will know that I'm talking about those abilities that can be equipped in these slots and used with Shift plus left or Shift plus right click. But still, I had 2 issues. I'm starting to think I'll never stop working on this. Let's start with the first one. Games need visual representations. They need to give the players some feedback that they have done something. Like when you place a block, you don't just see the block suddenly spawn there, you hear the sound of placing it. The issue is when the player cycles through spells, he doesn't get any feedback about it. Yes, fixing this would may be better using sounds, but I wanted to tell the player what slot they have selected. That means I need to use GUI. Here I have 4 options: boss bar, chat, title and action bar. Let's start with boss bar. It is used to display temporary effects like a gem booster or an advertisement. This is definitely not what we need. What about chat? With chat you can look back and see the history, and we don't need that. It will probably just take up space. We need to show it temporarily. Titles show it temporarily, but they take up the entire screen, and that will be really annoying. Especially if you try to use it in the middle of a fight. Action bars are really the right thing to use here, because they are like titles, but they don't take up a lot of space on the screen. The problem is that I already used that for showing the player's health, and we can't really show 2 things at the same time. Luckily, we can work around that by making a code that manages what action bars are shown. We need a list that contains everything that needs to be shown, and a text that will be displayed. This text updates every time the list changes. Also, there's a preset priority order to every kind of text. The higher the priority of something is, the closer to the center it will be. Health has always the highest priority. With this system done, it was really easy to show when the player switched spells. My other issue was that this system is pretty complicated. So complicated I need to make a video to explain it. At this point there was only one thing I could do. It was to make a tutorial. To make it more simpler, I tried hiding parts of the menu until the player unlocks them. I also made that extra slots can be unlocked for money that can be farmed by doing quests. Like the video if you want to see similar content about quests. This is how it looks. This system makes making abilities a lot easier. If you have any suggestions to it or you just like the video, make sure to tell me in the comment section. I love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching.